Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday YouTube channel. I am your host, Ryan Hartley. This channel is for heart-centered leaders just like you. I hope our time spent together helps you leave a heartprint where those around you are left better than yesterday. These interview sessions are sponsored by our great friends at Elevate Online Marketing. On episode 211, I welcome back Kiki Stanton to the podcast. Kiki is the founder of Kiki Kirby Consulting and Coaching, and she first joined me back in 2019. We have an amazing conversation about what it means to be a heart-centered leader, how we can evolve in a heart-centered way, and I really hope that you meeting the heart of this wonderful human being. It is episode 211 with Kiki Stanton. Kiki, welcome back to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you?
Good, Ryan. Thank you for having me back.
Episode 41, April 2019 was the last time we did this.
Do you know, I was thinking about that because I remember where I was sat actually recording it. So, wow, long time.
Yeah, it has been a long time. And you and I have stayed good friends and connected since. And yeah, it's nice to be able to bring you back and have a conversation and do this again because, you know, as in all things, when we're doing the work, we're growing too, right? And I'm sure it's a great opportunity for our audience and our new audience to kind of meet you where you're at.
Great.
Before we do that,
thank you.
Before we do that, set the scene. Tell us about the girl from a little town in Zimbabwe.
Oh, what a great place to start. So, little girl from Zimbabwe, from Gweru, similar sort of town to the town that I live in now. So I now live in Cirencester in Gloucestershire. And similar sort of town to that. So it's not one of the big cities, it's quite a small town. And lots of country, lots of greens. I used to live opposite a golf course. We would have lots of butterflies, bullfrogs, if people know what bullfrogs are, and they would make lots of noises. And it just had a really happy outdoor life, lots of fun. I used to ride my BMX and my bicycle, and we used to have a Wendy house, a playhouse, and I used to play video games and just really loved the outdoor life, swimming, playing in the garden and climbing trees and just doing all these outdoor activities, which was just pure joy.
And it's very difficult, isn't it? Because my only perception of Zimbabwe would be wrapped up in the general perception that the Western world has of Africa.
Yeah. Of like living in a mud hut, let's
right.
say.
Yeah. And it's nothing like that.
Well, there is mud huts there, absolutely. I never lived in a mud hut, but there are areas in Zimbabwe which have got mud huts and which are absolutely beautiful, and I'd love to go back and actually stay in one of them. And it's third world country, you're absolutely right. So it's not like first world problems. Safety is very different there. So we had a gate, we had dogs that only stayed outdoors. Our dogs here in England stay indoors. So very different life from a perspective of safety. Obviously, I mentioned all that beautiful nature and everything, which is great, but also there was a safety perspective. So I remember often I would feel quite scared going to our gate, which was, you know, a good kind of maybe 500 meters from where I was, and I used to feel quite scared to go there. I remember my dad used to say to me, "You can't even go to the gate. How are you going to live in England all the way there?" But I think it was because there was this education of, you know, not safe, and obviously there was real reasons for that, and were valid reasons. So I guess there was that joy, but also that element of life and safety and being a third world country.
What brought you to England?
Good question. So a number of things. So I think that the start of it for me was my dad was quite a strict father. So we are Greek, and we have Greek heritage, and my mum died when we were very young, which I'm sure we'll kind of go there again in this podcast. So my dad was very strict. I was the eldest of the family. I was a girl too. So he was very strict. I used to have a curfew of like 10 o'clock, even when the movie at the cinema wasn't finished, I still had to go home. So I think by the time I came to finishing school, I just wanted to gap it and leave and just be independent. So what the route was for me was I decided to go to the city, which was Harare. And I worked for a couple of entrepreneurs there and absolutely loved what I did there. But I always knew that I wanted more. And that at that time, I didn't know that adventure was one of my values.
Yep.
And it was the thing that people would do. People would go traveling and people would come to the UK. So quite naively, I just thought, actually, I'm going to go with a friend. And I think for me, that's where the journey of faith probably started for me, of like not really knowing what life would be like. And so I came to the UK and I landed up not far from where you live. So I landed up in Bradford-on-Avon over 22 years ago. And I just came with no proper plan. It was to work and enjoy. And then I arrived here and I did some temporary work to begin with. So I worked at the council, the good old council, just you'll know where that is because I know you live in Trowbridge. And then I worked for Bernardo's, the charity. And then I went on to work in recruitment. So I started my career in recruitment. And so that's what led me here. And I'm still here all of these many, 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 many years later.
On your website, you credit a number of people that have impacted your life, and you just talked about faith, and the top of that list is Jesus. Has he always been walking? Have you always been walking with him, or is it something that you came to? Like, what's your story there?
Yeah, I love that. Love that question. So we grew up Greek Orthodox, so very rule, very full of religion, lots of rituals, lots of rituals around icons and idols. So that was our kind of family religion. We weren't necessarily a very religious family. However, I went to a Christian school. So I went to a Christian school and I went to the college too. So there was a school and then a college, like a senior school attached to that. And so I guess naturally from the age of 5 or 6, wherever you go to school, was praying and God, and assemblies were always in that. I used to go to youth group. So I guess somebody was already sowing into my life then. People were praying for me and praying for us as a family. And so that's the journey that started for me then. And I guess I used to read the Daily Bread, which I actually still do read from time to time now. That's the one that was given to me in those days. And I guess the journey started for us as a family was my mum did become a Christian before she died. She used to go to Bible study, and so she became a Christian. So I think naturally those seeds were starting to harvest and be sown in. And I guess I got into high school and yes, Jesus and God was present. I used to go to youth group and I was pretty involved in youth group. So there was a lot of education. But then I got into the world of worldliness and life and money and boys and dating and drinking and money and success and this whole external life, which was my life for probably about up until 11 years ago, living a very worldly life. And I wouldn't say, when I say all of those things, I wouldn't say like I was naughty, but I guess I just was living a very ego-driven life, a life that was not really depending on God. And that only took me so far, because I got to a stage where I was starting to get hungry of like purpose. I was starting to feel stuck, and that had been rumbling around for about probably 2 years. And then I started to go on this journey of self-discovery, which I'm sure we'll get there. So it's been a journey of growth, but where I am right now at the age of 40, going on 41, absolutely, God, Jesus is number one. One of my values is spirituality. And that's why it's accredited on my website. And, as you ask that question, like there's a bit of emotion that goes on for me, because I know the pain that I've traveled without having God in my life, without having Jesus, without that reliance. And my life would not be the same without him. I would not be where I am today. I'd not have the peace that I have today without God being the center of my life.
It's funny, isn't it? Because my story, I came to faith quite
Yes.
late, and the interesting thing is I came to faith late, and as I meet many, who have been followers since childhood, what I'm finding really peculiar is that there's a point where they drift. There's a point where they almost disconnect, and it's almost something in life happens that brings them back. Does that sound like your story?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, as you say that, it makes me think, I wonder if, so we do drift, but I wonder whether we are actually really disconnected, because God is always with us. It's whether or not we always know that he is present. He's protecting us. He's, we are the chosen ones. He will always look after his flock. So we might drift away, but actually he's always got us. And then it comes to that pain and that struggle. And it's only when everything in the world can't give us and meet our needs is when we then fight for it and surrender, I guess. And I think it gets to that stage where you can't do it alone. You've tried everything else, and you've got to release and dig within. And I think for me it was fighting that, really fighting that, because I knew I wanted and I needed something more. But everything started to fall to pieces the minute I was back in church, and I then resisted it for probably about 9 to 10 months.
This is why I can't separate humor from being a follower, because I think God does have a sense of humor, and I think sometimes we have to have a little bit of sense of irony. And for many years I look back and I think this is the last thing I ever would want to give my life to, surrender to. That makes no sense. Where's the benefit to that? How does that help me? And it's very, and because I have this thing around not relying on anybody, not asking for any help. Why was I going to surrender my help to some thing or someone I couldn't see, let alone believe to be real?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I don't think I'm the only one. We live in a culture without God, and I think we end up making gods of our culture.
Absolutely. We make these idols work. I made work an idol. And if I'm not careful at different points of my journey, I have to really check in with that. I've had to make very big lifestyle changes. We know that scripture very well of do not conform to the pattern of this world. The pattern of this world is do, be, busy, compare. And
have more.
More, and spend.
Everything you need is outside of you.
Exactly. And we have to learn the hard way. I've learned the hard way through that all.
Yeah.
Hey, my friends, thank you for being with us so far. I hope you're enjoying the interview. I just wanted to take a quick moment to let you know about our signature Heartprint coaching. Our Heartprint coaching is for you if you're ready to go all in on becoming a heart-centered leader, ready to go all in on doing more of what you love, ready to see what you are capable of with support, guidance, and accountability. You're ready to go on a rapid, transformational journey that will change your life and others in as little as 3 months. Are you ready to show up with courage and share your gift with the world? Ready to start making an income and more impact by doing what you love? Ready to start leaving your legacy where those around you are left better than yesterday? In our Heartprint signature coaching, in our time together, I'll help you lead from your heart set. I'll help you develop other people and your team. I'll help you bring your heart work to the world. I'll help you start leaving a legacy and capturing examples of your impact. I will help you be someone you love, to do more of what you love, and to serve people that you love. It's an amazing opportunity for someone who's ready to go all in and be a heart-centered leader. I'll throw in loads of other bonuses, including your life languages profile, access to our Master Heart and Mind membership, and even some Always Better Than Yesterday merchandise. Head to abty.co.uk/coaching to find out more, and I look forward to connecting with you very soon. That's abty.co.uk.
I noticed that, actually, step back a bit. You've been running Kiki Kirby now for over 10 years. So I think it was last year you celebrated 10 years. Tell us a little bit about this entity, this Kiki Kirby platform that you are able to touch lives.
Yeah, well, you forget that it's been 10 years. And yes, we did celebrate 10 years, and it has been an incredible 10-year journey, but it's also been a really difficult 10 years too. So I guess it started with, and this kind of really goes nicely into where we left off around the spirituality. So at the time, I had been in recruitment and HR, loved what I did, earning really well, but there was this desire for more purpose. And I landed up at the church that you're at, Yards, which I will never ever forget. And actually, I need to make a commitment to come there. I keep saying I'm going to come there, and I've not come, and I have to make some time to
well, now you've declared it on a podcast.
Exactly. That's why I've also done it. So I've done that. So a friend of my sister had said, come to church. She's just started going back to church, come to church. So I went to church, and I loved it. And I just loved everything about it. But I got very involved very quickly. And then I started to notice things different within me. I started to notice my environment at work. I wasn't enjoying it. Burnout happened very quickly. And at the time, I just bought my house in Cirencester. So I was living around that sort of area, but I bought a house in Cirencester because I'd used to travel to Swindon. I'd commuted to Swindon and Cheltenham for so long. And I needed to put some roots down. And so that's where then I had bought my house, but I'd bought my house and I was in deep depression, really tough depression, grief. I was in therapy at the time. And I decided to leave that career with nothing to go to. So again, faith showed up then, not really like questioning God, not in church, reading my Bible, interestingly enough, every day. People were praying for me, but I was in dark. I couldn't leave the house. And I guess for me in my heart, I knew I wanted to help people. So this was in the February I left my career in recruitment over 11 years ago. I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't know how, and I didn't know in what capacity. So I contracted for a little bit, and then an old candidate said to me, Kiki, why don't you look at coaching? And to be honest, I didn't know that there was actually a specific industry. I didn't know, I knew of coaching because I coached my team, I mentored my team. And so when I started my coaching certifications, half an hour in, I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I've been looking for. This is it. I absolutely knew. So that's where Kiki Kirby Coaching was born. And I guess the reason for the name was just because my name, I was known in the recruitment and HR space. And so it made sense to have my name in it. And actually quite recently, most of last year, I was considering changing the name. But when I spent more time understanding the 10 years, the brand, the value, it would not make any sense at this stage to change the name because it's got its own identity. And so what is the brand? Essentially is we are a family business. So it's run with my sister Eleni and I, and she came into the business not long after me, so about 2 and a bit years after. And again, that was so God divine. We'll talk about that shortly. And so we've evolved the business as we've grown, and that's why a lot of the work I do and I talk about is about evolving in a heart-centered way, because the aspirations and the dreams I had and the vision I had very early on have evolved, and they've changed and they've tweaked and they've simplified. But what we've created is an opportunity and a place for people to navigate their way through life, their way through their struggles, ways to slow down, to find that peace, to find the calmness, to really seek their purpose and wherever they are, and really focusing on tools and techniques and strategies to find calmness amongst chaos and gain clarity through procrastination, and to focus on people's well-being, but through a trauma-informed approach, which is something that's quite new that we've introduced into our business. And so I love the work that we do. We work with incredible human beings. I just feel very privileged and blessed to do the work that we do. And I guess just around the name and what we do is, obviously the name is Kiki Kirby Coaching and Consultancy, but in that time I've got married, so my name really is Kiki Stanton. So it's the business has got its, and what we do has got its own identity. in that time I've had cancer, which is shortly after we spoke, which, at the time, I think lots of great things were going on, but I very quickly came back to work after that. And I realized, actually, I don't, I'd got office space, we'd recruited a team, and I really realized I didn't want to do the work that we were doing in that capacity. But I love working with clients around their heart-centered leadership and what that means to them. And I know that's why we share a lot, because of the heart connection, the mind connection, the spirit connection. And it's just a privilege, real privilege, to do the work that we do.
I want to ask a question around the heart-centered way. But before we do that, touch on, we talked a lot about your cancer journey. And now that we're kind of nearly 4 years on from when we last spoke, is cancer something that's part of your life every single day that you think about? Is it in the rearview mirror, like being 4 years, or even further down that line? Like, how would you describe that part of your journey?
So I think it's been an ever evolving journey. So at different stages, it is in the rearview mirror and it's long gone. Some stages it's in front of me. So I'll give you an example. So I've been pretty well health-wise recently. I am in remission, everything's good, I'm out of checkups. And last week I caught a really bad cough. I've been really well. Everybody else has had colds in the last year and I've been really well. And then I caught this cough, and obviously my cancer started with a cough. And then at the same time, I'd recently had some bloods, and my doctor called, and so that then starts to open up. Oh yes, you had cancer. Remember. Oh yes, need to slow down. Oh yes, need to take care of yourself. Oh yes, you can't do the cold water therapy right now. And then it's like all these limitations for a little bit. So I've tried really hard in my journey to keep it in my rearview mirror, behind in the rearview mirror. But at times it does show up. And I was having some therapy last week, and my therapist was saying to me, because I was frustrated that this does still come up at points and I don't want it to come up. And she was just really encouraging me to lean into those emotions of the anger, the frustration, because again, when I unpick life, is I have been, and that's probably something we didn't touch about my childhood, was I was quite an unwell child. I had hepatitis quite young. I had malaria. So there was my illness has probably started from quite young. So I've always had challenges with my immune system, but I've never let it get in the way. So it's still an ever-going journey. I wish I often could just say I'm healthy and I'm well, and I do, but there's points where I'm reminded because of the body I live in.
Thank you for sharing that. It's I think sometimes people come to podcasts expecting golden answers, golden bullets, expecting, oh, here's the 3 steps to do that, and the reality is sometimes there are things that people are journeying with. And I think that's much more. It's not relatable, it's deeper than that. It's a point of connection. If they can connect with that in you, then they can connect with that in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reality is we will all have a health challenge, whatever it is. And it's how we take care of ourselves, it's what we do with ourselves, it's making sure that we take care of our body, soul, mind, spirit, all of our well-being, all of it. And it's only when something happens that you think, oh, I need to take care of myself more.
Yeah, and I think I've had enough guests on the show recently, particularly around Chris Walk and
yes, you did, didn't you? Yes.
Yeah, so I had a conversation with Chris Walk and Bruce Lipton. Both of those put the first thing down to is just your belief. Your belief and your perception. Simply, love or fear. If you believe that the world is out to get you, the fearful, then you're filling yourself with the cortisol, shall we say. But you know the amazing thing, that this is the funny thing, right? When I started to become, a reader of the Bible, I was reading things like Dr. Joe Dispenza. And Dr. Joe Dispenza's research said that the production of oxytocin inhibits the production of cortisol. And I was like, that means that perfect love
does cast out fear.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah,
and I
absolutely.
just found that symmetry just absolutely fascinating. It's almost like a 2,000-year mic drop.
You're so right. And those moments, I'm so pleased that you've mentioned that, because those moments where cancer maybe isn't in front of me, or those memories are come, I go back to, I've been healed, I am well, I've got a life to live here, this is my purpose right now, and this is where I'm at, and I am healthy and I'm well, and God has healed me, and I will be well, and just speaking life over the areas that are feeling like there's death.
Yeah.
To an extreme,
I love that. One of the things on your website talks about the kite of hope. Doesn't everybody need a kite of hope? What do you mean by a kite of hope?
Yeah, so that program, so interesting you talk about that program, Ryan, because that was the very first group coaching program that I designed. I'd had it in my heart for such a long time, because we know that, again, the Bible says faith, hope, and love are there, but love will last forever. And so when we've got that hope, it's like one of the first foundations that you can have. Hope, love, and faith are all linked, aren't they? So I wanted people to have hope in whatever their background, situation, pain that they can have. They can navigate that. And I remember I hadn't long, it wasn't long when Ryan, my husband, and I know we've said this before, my husband is also called Ryan, which means little prince, doesn't it? I think we've said this on all of our podcasts. Yeah. But anyway, we were traveling in Miami, and I'd made that decision. I was going to launch this program, and I knew it was going to be a 8 to 10 week program. And I wrote out all the modules, and I created this marketing plan, which was just it was terrible. But anyway, and it was focused all around, you fly your own personal kite each and every day. The wind is breezy, there will be turbulence, but it's how you fly that kite. It's what you're in control of, it's what you're not in control of. And but in the first program that I ran, so I ran it, great, incredible feedback. And in the second one, I was meant to be running it, and that's when I was told I was starting chemotherapy literally the next day, and I had to go to hospital that night. Wow. So and even just saying it now, it takes me back. So it was so hard in many ways, but I ran that program with no hair. I ran that program. I had incredible people on that program. I'll never forget that. And that was the catalyst, I guess, for the platforms that created change. So I had a number of people go through that program. Then I turned it into a self-study program, which actually, when I look at that program now, which I don't market that program a lot, which I know I need to get back to because it's got so much love there, it's because I was at a state where I had no hair. So it was difficult. But with that being said, I've had, I think, close to over 300 people go through that program. It's based on Hebrews, one of the scriptures in Hebrews, and it was just pure joy. So it's very special, but it's also got lots of emotion attached to it, as you can probably hear me just sharing that.
When's the last time you watched that back?
Quite recently, because with some clients I do send it to, so quite recently, and often the memories pop up on Facebook. And actually, maybe it is a point for me to go back based on the work that I did with my therapist last week, and just have a look at that emotion. And I look back often at the growth of, like, being happy and proud of and celebrating what we have done with that program, and it's professional, and it transforms lives. That's all that it was meant for.
One of the things that I've really connected with the depth of social media and podcasting particularly is that people get to know us who will never ever meet us. And I don't mean this generation. I mean in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 generations to come. That kite of hope that you're putting out showing up in your most difficult of days.
Mm.
What an incredible gift that someone that you will never ever get to meet might have the opportunity to see that and be inspired by that.
I know. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder there. Thank you.
Blows
So
my
I
mind.
need to, because it's on the website. I love that you've gone and take a look at, taken a look at the website. I was only looking at it the other day, so that's a good, that's a confirmation. So that's a confirmation for me.
Yeah,
Sort
fly your
yourself
kite.
out, Kiki.
Fly
Yeah,
your kite.
yeah.
One of the things that I took a lot of time trying to do is put words to this matter of the heart, so often transcends understanding. How did you find that process? How did you put words to evolving in a heart-centered way?
Yeah, good question. I think it's a continual journey, and
Yeah.
that's why I know we are looking to have you do some work with Eleni and I in our business. I think it's a continual process. So how did I connect the heart in was, I think for me, I had a very cold, dead heart for so long. Like, I could not communicate my feelings, so much trauma. I didn't cry. And that trigger of 11 years ago when I went through that burnout and God starting to, deal with the issues in the heart, was where that heart journey started for me. Wow. I would have never imagined then that my business would be so full of heart, if I'm absolutely honest, because when my logo was first created, the logo was round because it was all around like the life cycle and life and the world, and a bit like the globe that we've got in this picture here in the video. And but interestingly, the heart journey had started when I was living in Hilperton, not far from where you were. I lived on the marina there, and actually, it's so bizarre that we're talking about, not bizarre, okay, none of this is bizarre, but we'll get onto this shortly. Was I had just had a sabbatical. This is probably about 15 years ago now. So I just had a sabbatical from work, from the job that I was in recruitment, and I went to Australia for 4 weeks to see my bestie there, who I'm actually going on Sunday, which we'll talk about that shortly, which, like, wow. Yeah. Wow. So I went on the sabbatical, and I didn't have a home at the time because I just moved back in with my dad because I was really like redoing life, and I had a split up and a breakup. And so I went on the sabbatical, traveled alone, saw my bestie there who we've been friends with since 13 years, and she's prayed for me ever since we've been friends. And then went to Thailand. But when I came back, I got this house in Staverton, which I loved. I used to run along the marina, hence why then I ended up at Vineyard. But I used to have these hearts everywhere in my house. So my house was black, like lots of black furniture, but I started buying all these hearts, which I still have in my house now. And Ryan's like, there's hearts everywhere. There's hearts on the door. There's hearts on the wall. So I think that's where the heart started. And then that's where it's just evolved. And that's how it's evolved. And I guess it's evolved more because I was very ego-driven. Life was very ego-driven. Business was very ego-driven. And that's where the heart-centered's come in more. That's where the evolving is come in, because evolve is to develop naturally into that better, more advanced state. So that's how it's evolved. And healing of the heart, dealing with the heart, dealing with the complexities of the heart, understanding the heart's needs, meeting the heart's needs, listening to the heart. So much there.
Do you find that you work primarily with women, men, both, or things in between? Who gets drawn to your work?
Both.
Yeah.
I love working with men and women. I would say probably it goes through phases in our business. I'd probably say at the moment I am probably 70% female, 30% male, but at times it's 50-50. And I think one of the reasons for that is I think the men that do come to me that we work with are those that need heart love the most.
Sure.
Yeah. I think it's obvious to most people listening to understand that a lot of men are conditioned out of their heart. They're conditioned out of their feelings because
Yeah.
in some way it's been passed down to them that is a display of weakness in some
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So I understand why, and this is why men sometimes struggle to relate and be the man that they need to be for their woman, is because they can't meet her in the depths of her emotion if they
Yeah.
haven't met themselves and the depths of
Absolutely.
their emotion.
Yeah.
If I've been conditioned to reject my vulnerability, then your vulnerability is going to repel me.
Yeah.
So that one's sinking for people that are listening. But the point I wanted to make is that last year I interviewed a lady called Maureen Murdoch, and she's
Okay.
written a book called The Heroine's Journey, which
Okay.
is almost a feminine perspective on Joseph Campbell's The Hero Journey.
Okay. Yeah.
And one of the things that absolutely blew my mind was this idea that, because there's a lot of talk at the moment around women's empowerment, women can do anything, they can be anything, they can have it all, and come into the workplace, become CEOs, which I 100% believe in the qualities of female leadership. I think it's incredible and the world needs more of it, but not if it's going to dissociate and detach her from her heart and her body. And I think that is, I think and the reason I want to pick this up is because you talk about working with high achievers. And I wonder whether you see those characteristics, high achievers going out into the world, giving more than the world gives back to them, taking them away from their families, taking them away from their heart and their souls, leaving them on their knees because their body is not being loved and served and cared for, hitting some form of burnout. Does that kind of resonate with the type of people that come to you?
Absolutely, 100%. Yes. And I've had goosebumps as you've said that, because what happens is that's the worldliness. So we think, right, we're going to go and achieve, and I'm going to get the job, and I'm going to go get that title, and I'm going to get this, and I'm going to do that. That's going to make me happy. That's going to make me happy. So it's going to move you away. It's moving you away from your pain. We think it's moving you away from the pain and the loss and the numbingness and all of that. And in actual fact, you get all of that. And it's not what you want. And that's what's happened in my journey. I know we've had discussions about that at different stages of your journey too. And that's what I find is with the high achievers is they still want to do great work and great purposeful work, but it takes for them to get to their knees, to surrender, to make those changes, to create an impact.
Do you know the thing that, I am at the point of flipping tables at this point, I think, because it really frustrates me on a values level, is that I think it's the serpent, the idea of the serpent saying, come out, you can have everything. And it's true, you can have everything, but there's so much sacrifice that it takes from you and it never gives back to you, because it's always, and particularly in some environments where, women will have to, almost by culture, work harder to be recognized and seen, all some of the equality piece, which I won't go too much into. But I want people to listen and understand clearly that I'm not anti, I'm not being patriarchal, misogynist, any of those things, because I have a huge heart for women. What I do not like seeing is women sacrificing themselves, their heart, their body,
their family,
exactly, for something
themselves.
That doesn't care for them.
Yeah.
And that doesn't give them back.
And I think that's where I wanted to make a stand and speak my truth, because and I'm quite bold with that, because that's why I talk a lot about the work that we do in the corporate space around, our work centers around high performing teams. Absolutely, yes, but with healthier people. And that then links to better bottom lines through human and heart-centered approaches, because everybody's approach is going to be completely different. But actually, I needed somebody at those 11 years ago, or when I was starting my career out, to say, you don't have to burn yourself out to do this. You don't have to be a high achiever and want to be number one for 10 years or 6 years and ego driving and all of that. So that's why I'm so passionate about. I think there's something around re-educating. We all need to be re-educated. So we've got to unlearn to relearn.
Yeah, I saw something on Instagram yesterday. Not Instagram, it was on LinkedIn. I think Simon Sinek had posted it, and he basically said, "Here we go. I'll read it. Protect people, because in tough times, the numbers will never rush to save you."
So true.
And isn't
What a
that
good
funny?
reminder.
Because that you've literally just talked about the bottom line, and if the focus is the bottom line, well, the numbers are not going to rush to save you.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
the punchlines in the look after your people.
Yeah, absolutely. Because people matter. You know, humans matter. We matter. And, you know, we only have one life to live. And you just never, ever know who you're going to meet on the way up your career, the way down through your career, how your paths are going to cross. And yeah, and it just made me think yesterday, I just felt like an utter, absolute gratitude for, I have 2 old clients that have been in my life for over 22 years, one in Swindon, one kind of Hampshire way. They've been through my whole journey. There were clients that I used to recruit for. One was in HR, one was a VP of a really big, large global organization. And they are friends of mine, and they're much more mature women. But it just made me just so grateful for those friendships, that, you know, the people that come into your life that are meant to be in your life. Because again, that's not, you know, relationships. We have to cherish them. It's not a given.
Yeah, and I think there'll be people listening to this right now, you know, that will absolutely be here for a reason. They might not realize it, but they're listening for a reason. And there's something over your shoulder. It says learning how to fall in love again. And I know that's a theme that picks up through your website a lot.
Yeah.
Falling back in love with the life that you have, and falling back in love with yourself. And where people want that, people need that. Where do they start to fall back in love again?
Yeah. So the love in there is based on scripture. It's based on, you know, love never fails, love perseveres, and it's so important to have love, because if you haven't got love, then you're unhappy, you're seeking. And the fall back in love again is because we do fall out of love with certain things, because of boredom, because of it's not fulfilling us, because we need more or want more, or our values aren't aligned. And so I think the very first part is to do a really regular, you know, reflection on where are you, what's making you happy, you know, what lifestyle are you happy with, what do you want for your future. And I'm not meaning materialistic things here. I'm talking about, you know, meaningful relationships, meaningful work, and asking yourself those curious questions of that self-discovery. And I guess I've been the testament of, you can fall back in love with your life several times. There's been several times I've had to rebuild life. I've had to rediscover. Not so long ago, I think it was 2021, I really was considering closing Kiki Kirby coaching down. I had seen my accountant. I had chatted it over with Ryan. We had a good business, but I just was not liking the way we were working. I was tight, you know, my health was still really challenging at that time. And thank God, you know, obviously I'd prayed about it too, and I knew that wasn't the right thing to do. But going on this journey of rediscovering who you are is understanding what your needs are, what your wants are, what are your priorities, you know, embracing the setbacks. That's something I've done through depression, through cancer, through fertility, you know, lots of different things. I've embraced the setback, and because that's where the healing happens, that's where the magic happens, that's where the dark, you know, the light becomes, you know, comes out of the darkness. And then finding gratitude in all of those moments, like I just said yesterday, like I felt that utter gratitude. And then rebuilding, you know, and rebuilding sometimes you can't do alone. I'll be honest with that I've had help with that, coach, therapy, personal trainer, friends, God. But that's why God is at the top, Jesus is at the top of that list, because yes, all of those external people will help, but at the end of the day, I pray and I ask, Lord, please give me a confirmation for this. God, where do you want me to be? Lord, help me make these decisions. Lord, be with me through this.
And it allows, and it's in that realization of help that it allows other fractals of God to step in and be that presence of Jesus in everyday life, walking alongside in human form. Yeah. That's really powerful. Again, the listeners of this show will pick up on certain themes based on what I'm listening to, what I'm reading, because I've asked similar questions of my previous guests, but I've just watched a documentary called The Moses Code. And it's a looking at the scripture where Moses and God's in the bush, and basically God's saying, "Dear Moses, I'd like you to lead." And Moses is like, "What? Me? You're not me, surely not." And then one of the real things that kind of hit me in this documentary is it says that even though Moses didn't feel worthy, his willingness to do as he was commanded, surrendered his ego and allowed God's full expression through him. And I think that's so true of anybody, is even for you last year, to have the willingness to lay down your business, should you need to, should that be God's path for you. You've detached your ego from your business, and your willingness has allowed that full expression. And you're still here today. Why? Because this is your heart work. This is the light work that you bring. And of course it was always meant to be kept in place, but your willingness to lay it down is testament to that surrender.
Yeah, I love that. And what a great reminder there about Moses. And actually, I haven't heard of that documentary, so I definitely love to take a look at it, because I spent some time in that part of the scripture and really also dissected that. And, that's the same for every single one of us. We are chosen by God to do something. For all of us, it will be something.
Yeah.
And we will not feel equipped. If I look at the work we do, speaking, preaching, just all the work, often I say, God, why us? Like, why? This is never what I would have ever imagined. I was timid as a child. I never spoke in class, all of that sort of thing. But God had bigger plans. And again, a scripture I really hang on to from Moses is he said, be strong and courageous. And that's the thing, strength is, the only way to get strength is you develop it daily. You get stronger by strengthening yourself every single day. And the courage is something, again, we're given, be strong and courageous. We're given it, but we've got to apply it.
I love the bit where he's pretty much saying to God, you can't be real. Like, you don't want me to lead. Like, who am I to lead? And then God just says, what's that in your hand? As almost as it's a reminder that you have all that you need.
Exactly. That's the thing. And God brought the right people to help him do what he needed to do.
Yeah, without giving too much away, the whole Moses Code is about the response that when Moses says, what's your name? And how does God respond?
Like, I am God. I am the Father. Yeah.
But what specific words does he use?
Oh gosh, Ryan,
I am that.
I am that. Yes.
It says, I am that, I am. And the whole Moses Code is simply a comma, because for decades, people have, I guess, been saying it in such a fluent way, is I am that I am. I am that I am. But actually, if you put a comma after that, I am that. I am that. I am that. I am that.
Powerful.
I am. And it's a great reminder that God is in all and through all. And he's saying, I'm that, I am.
Yeah.
I find that real fascinating. Anyway, I hope I haven't just spoiled
No,
it.
I'm going to have to go and dissect it because I do love, and I was just looking because I normally have a Bible next to my bed, in my office, downstairs. But because I'm about to travel, I haven't got one here because it's being packed. So I'm going to go and dissect it and see and understand.
I think it's a book as well, but the irony is not lost on me. The fact that you and I spoke 2019, it was in a period of my life when Lisa and I were going through some struggles. I actually recorded, that was the only episode I recorded, not in this house.
Yes.
So we were taking some time apart. I was at my mum's house. You can see it on YouTube. If you don't believe me, anyone doesn't believe me.
I'm going to go back and listen to that because I was in my kitchen. I remember it so clearly. Yeah, I remember.
But two people showing up, and I'd just like to thank you for the way that you've guided me along this path. And one of the things that I learned during my Alpha course is that God sends a council of saints, and you were absolutely one of my saints, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you.
And I just have loved getting to know you and Lisa. I've not even met you guys in person yet, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And I know we keep saying that we're going to meet because we're only an hour away. But that's the thing, is you never ever know. Like some of the stuff that I've sent you often has never been because it's just Holy Spirit led. And again, and you too, my cold tub, my cold tub, the inspiration. Obviously, I had started to do the cold water therapy, but came from you. And then I got the tub. And I have absolutely loved it. I've not been able to do it for about a week. And I went today and to test it. And because I'm about to travel, I didn't really want to get ill, but it's reignited Ryan, my husband, Ryan. He's now thinking of, he's got it in his goals to start pretty soon. And, again, so you've sowed into my life in that area, which has then led me on to do the swimming locally. And it's just been so transformational, and just love your community and, love just what God has done in your life. And I just can't wait to see the plans that God's got for you and life and your family too.
Conscious your time. I've got a couple more things I do want to prove you on. One of the things that you've blogged about recently was some anti-perfectionism affirmations.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Rob Bell, American pastor. Well, he was a pastor. He's written a number of books. And one of the things that he said on his podcast recently, he says it with like irony, the way that God does. He says, "Find me a straight river." He says, it's that idea that if nature is the only thing that is perfect, you won't even find a straight river in nature.
Wow, I've never heard that.
Find me a straight river.
Wow.
What other anti-perfection affirmations might you have?
Yeah. Well, so when you link again to the high achiever, you link to perfectionism, you link to the ego. We have these parts of ourselves, and you've had other people on the podcast that have spoken a lot about parts and internal family systems. And that's something I want to bring more into our work. Obviously, we take this trauma-informed approach, but we've got these parts of ourselves that show up. And, one of mine and one of my clients is this perfectionism of everything's got to be perfect. Everything's got to be great. And so it's not taking away these parts of ourselves and getting rid of them, but it's okay, how do I lean into them? How do I understand that more? Why is that showing up? What is it about that perfectionism that's there? And I've transformed my perfectionism in the last 11 years. It's still work in progress, but oh my goodness, it's been game changer. And so it's been a game changer. And so that's why that's there of, it doesn't just it takes work to, a behavior change, a part change, an awareness change. So that's why that's there. Because again, externally, you want everything to be perfect. But the reality is, often our external world is a representation of our internal world.
And like, who's even agreed the same level of perfection? Like, it's a subjective thing by nature, right?
Absolutely. It's whoever's map of the world. Your map of the world will be
Yeah.
different to my map of the world.
And the thing I've then deduced is this idea that creation cannot be judged. If things are so subjective that if Lisa does a song and someone loves it and someone hates it, who's right?
Exactly.
And therefore, if it is our creation that we want to be perfect, just know that it can't be judged. Can't be judged. It's just simply for those in the world who need it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to do a little bit more blogging on that point, actually.
Maybe
That was a little while
sometime in the
ago.
airplane.
That was quite a long time ago, that blog, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you blog, by the way?
I have a blog, but not consistently. I think that's how I use my social media platform.
Yeah.
They're almost like mini blogs.
They are, definitely.
Yeah, I could definitely be. But then again, I've just met you at your website, at that blog, which is probably something that I could do, put my body of work in one place so that people can meet at any time rather than scrolling through.
Yeah.
You talk about a heart-centered life audit. Obviously, people need to head to your website to see what that's all about, but how might one partake in a heart-centered life audit?
Yeah, good question. So it's a list of maybe 10 to 15 different things, which almost get you to focus on where you are right now. So it's things like your spirituality, your personal development, your mindset, your well-being, your self-care, your relationships, your finance, your learning and development. Like, it's got a whole list of different things, and it's got all these little circles. So that's the circle of life back in there, on a scale. So it starts with 1 to 10, 1 being terrible, 10 being 10 out of 10. And what that does is it gives you a reality check of where you are right now. And then it's, okay, what is one change that I can make in that area? So let's say it's health. And you say, okay, my health is a 4 out of 5, but it's 4 out of 10. But actually I want, and you color it in. So I'm all for like creativity and writing. So you color it in, and then you actually say, so I want to get to a 5. So to get to a 5, I know that I need to be more disciplined. I need to drink more water. I need to X, Y, Z, do what you need to do. So then it raises awareness and gives you awareness of where you are. If you think about an audit, if you think about auditors, they come in and assess what's going on. And this is more of a self-coaching reflective tool. So again, it came out of me doing some work on myself and auditing where things are, because I think it's very difficult to make changes if you don't know where you are.
I have a word here I always bet in yesterday. It's called Heartprint, and it represents the impact, the legacy, the possibilities that we create through our work, through our interactions with people. What do you think the heartprint of your work will be?
Such a good question. And that's why I need some help from you. That's why we wanted you to come. That's why I've reached out to you to do some work with us, because I think I know it in my heart and I can feel it, and I know it, but I can't articulate it in a way. So I think if I, and maybe if I can explain it a bit, I see it in the future generations. I see it in nations to come. I see it in like my niece. So my niece Sophie, who is similar, and actually, you know, I know you did a podcast with your daughter, which I haven't listened to, but Lenny, my sister's listened to it, and she was like, she got to listen to it. I was like, I know it's on my list, and to listen to it, it's on my list. Because I'm one of those that I don't drive and do a podcast. I don't walk and do a podcast. If I do a podcast, I sit, I watch, I listen, and I'm present.
Yeah.
And so I look at my niece. So she's 9. She was born at the start, quite early on at the start of my coaching journey, and she has got an impeccable mindset. She believes in herself. She knows who God is. She is so grounded. She is confident. She is creative. We are working on a family business, the three of us, which I'm so excited. I'm not going to share anything yet, but it's something that is not something that was ever in the plan, but it's evolved. And I guess that's my heartprint, is leaving that legacy of what's to come. And that's why if I look at my name being in there, is even for when I move on one day and I go to heaven, is my name, our name will still be in there, of the heritage of the pain that I've had to get through to still be here, so that others don't travel the same journey as me, or they learn from my journey. And I want to give people that hope that it doesn't matter where you've been, your pain, your grief, you can evolve, your life can grow again, you can fall in love again. And I guess that's my heartprint, is just showing people the possibilities that life is for living.
Yeah, amen. Do you ever get that point where you're so used to a particular scripture and then you read a different translation of it and you're like, oh man, I've seen that in a completely different way? Well, everybody knows the thorns in your flesh scripture, right? In your weakness, you're made strong.
Yes.
But in the Passion Translation, so Paul pleads for God to remove the thorns from his flesh 3 times. Please remove these thorns from my flesh. And in the Passion Translation, God simply responds, in your weakness, you will find my full expression.
Powerful.
And there's people wanting to avoid pain, and they realize, the sooner we realize that there is purpose in our pain, and then we can use that to allow and manifest God's full expression. No wonder that's where your heartprint's going to be.
Yeah, you're right. And when I think of like the journey that I've traveled, through pain, I've got very comfortable with moving through the pain. And I say that comfortable is I sit with it, and that's why I'm still in there. That's why I went and got a therapist last year, because I really wanted to get deeper and heal through some of that I know that I needed to heal through, and understand it. And that gives you more context, that helps you. And that's why I'm so open about all that I share, because I want other people to be inspired that your pain will lead you to where you're meant to be.
Yeah. I love that. How can people connect with you?
So you can find me on Instagram at kiki.kirby.coaching, on LinkedIn at Kiki Stanton, or Kiki Kirby Consultancy, or our podcast too, which Ryan has been on, which is the Kiki Kirby podcast show. And can I just say on that, my husband Ryan really loved our episode, and has been one of, I think, the favorite podcast episodes. And that's a lot. I think that's a lot for my, because Ryan is he loves me dearly, but he's also my biggest critic, with love. So just thank you for that, because that meant a lot to me too, because you shared a lot about things that I think men really need right now in the world. So thank you for that.
Nothing to do with my name then.
That's the old ego, right. Little princes.
What can I say? Look, grateful.
I will not be having Ryan in my business name, or I won't be calling it a program under Ryan.
What can I say? Maybe we're just your council of saints, council of princes.
Maybe.
Oh,
Thank you so much for having me on here and inviting me again. I was really honored to be invited again, because I know your show has grown so much. I've been so inspired by your show and your work.
It's no secret. I just haven't stopped.
That's the thing. That's a consistency, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like the word over the other shoulder. It's about just letting it evolve. Sometimes it's we have an idea, we have a thought, we have a plan. And sometimes it's not our will be done. And sometimes things come your way, sometimes doors shut, and I slowly started to trust whatever is meant to unfold is part of that. And it's a bit of a Chinese philosophy. It's called Wu Wei, which is the art of doing nothing, which is like It's like the wisdom of knowing when not to meddle and interfere with stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Proverbs tells us so much about wisdom, so much. Ever doubting anything, get yourself into Proverbs. It will give you clarity very quickly.
Yeah, amen to that. I'd be honored if you'd leave us a final thought from your good self.
Wow, we've shared so much. Final thought. Make your life count, because we're only given one life. So make your life count. Do what you feel you've been led to do, and just take that action. If your heart is telling you to make a change, make a change. Get yourself inspired, love, grow, and just learn to take the action in the areas that you need to take action in. And just know that there's always hope. And know that there's always a plan for you. It might not be your plan, but know that there's hope for you. And there's always people there to help you along your journey. And that's probably what I'd say.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you so much. See you all soon.
Thank you for making it to the end of the interview here on YouTube. I hope that our time spent together has left you a little bit better than before you push play. Before you go anywhere, please leave a comment down below, some of your key reflections, your key takeaways. I love hearing from you and what this conversation has inspired in you. Let me know what you're going to do as a result of this conversation. I will be back next Wednesday, where I will share another inspiring guest. To make sure that you don't miss that, please do subscribe, hit the bell, and you will be notified as soon as it goes live. If you're curious to know how I, through Always Better Than Yesterday, can serve you, your team, your organization, please do visit alwaysbetterthanyesterday.com, and it will be my honor and privilege to help you in any way I can. Keep leading, my friends. I've been Ryan Hartley, host of the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast here on YouTube. Always love.